Welcome to Conversations, Season 2 of the MTA Podcast Series, a weekly audiocast featuring interviews with leading investment strategists, geopolitical experts, and other key thought leaders, brought to you by the Market Technicians Association.
Welcome to Conversations, the official MTA podcast interviews. My name is Alex Spiroglou, and today I'm joined by Jeff Hochman, Global Head of Technical Analysis by Fidelity. Hello Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Alex.
We'll begin with the first question, which is if you could give us some information about you, your personal educational background before jumping into technical analysis.
Right, well, I have grown up in a very kind of fundamentally driven household in the American equity culture. Sometime probably in the mid-80s, before the crash in 87, 85, 86, I picked up my very first book on technical analysis. And although I continued to go on and get my degree in international business, my master's degree, which was more fundamentally focused, I always thought that there was something to the technical, the world. And during the early 2000s, or 1990, especially 91 onwards, I kind of made that into more of a career path. Starting, although I was still doing fundamental analysis, I felt that the technical world was something that I really liked and understood, especially the behavioral element of technical analysis and psychology. So that transcended more or less into becoming a full-time technical analyst, strategist, using the fundamentals and the macro viewpoints with the technicals to help confirm each other, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Brilliant. So could you give us a brief description of your day-to-day responsibilities and the most challenging aspects of your job?
Sure. Well, I guess starting from the most challenging aspects, from a technical perspective, I do work in a very fundamentally driven bottom-up research house at Fidelity, which is the way it always has been and way it always will be, and that's absolutely fine. That makes the job a lot more fun as well. And since I do think I understand a lot about the fundamental elements, I'm not one to bash people on the head with the technicals. That said, the day-to-day responsibilities are twofold. About 50% of my time is bottom-up stock picking. The 30% of my time is probably asset allocation. So from a top-down perspective, looking at the world from a macro viewpoint, looking at the relationships between the different asset classes, between equities on a regional basis, whether we think the U.S. should be overweighted versus Asia or Japan, etc., and try to monitor these situations, which are very, very fluid. So on a day-to-day basis, I might have two different fund reviews where a particular fund manager and I will get together, and I had already, knowing what is in the portfolio, gone through every single position and try to highlight the ones that I thought were going to continue doing well, or others that maybe we can talk about switching into something differently that I think looks more attractive from a fundamental and technical position. And I do quite a lot of those, probably about 20 per month on a rotating basis. Certain times during the week, then I will turn my asset allocation hat, and right now I'm kind of reviewing and preparing for a larger monthly review that I do on all the different asset classes.
Okay. Would you mind elaborating on the toolbox? What's your favorite tools and techniques that you use for your day-to-day responsibilities?
Yes, I do agree in kind of the principle of keeping it relatively simple. I look at a lot of things that I don't necessarily talk to my fundamental colleagues about because they're a bit too confusing, and I don't think that's necessary. The standard chart book and pattern recognition and relative strength analysis is something that I think every technician has to understand and has to use, which I do. And there's a whole bunch of different types of momentum indicators that are all derivatives of each other, whether that be an MACD or an RSI, that I do look at. There's a couple of semi-proprietary indicators that we've developed that I also think gain an added flair that I tend to look at. But I am not necessarily always a trend follower. I do like to look for reversal patterns and strong reversal patterns. That's what people really like, are things that happen, perform well, that maybe will performing well, that no one else is looking at. So I spend quite a bit of time doing that. And I also spend a decent amount of time looking at times where I think individual stocks are going to stop rising and start falling and topping out, because taking profits in the sell discipline is extremely important for us.
And what have been the greatest influences in order to the process of creating your analysis arsenal? And what have been, for example, if you had to suggest 3 books to someone starting on technical analysis, which ones would these be?
Right, very good question. Well, there's numerous people that I've listened to that are older than myself, such as Jeff Hochman, who's here with us today, who helped get me started and continue to influence how I look at the world. People like Lowry, and there's numerous, too many to actually probably mention. In terms of books, the very first book I read in technical analysis was by Stan Weinstein, Profiting in Bull and Bear Markets in the mid-1980s. It's still a very, very good book. I've read most of the so-called Bibles. The Schabacher book is fantastic at looking at the markets. I think I kind of actually like that a little bit more. I don't have 1 or 2 standout books, but I have a library full of all the standard books that you'll find on technical analysis. Anything you can find on emotion, like Jesse Livermore books and the books on popular delusions, etc., I think are very, very important, because that is, over time, what actually makes our trade continue to be quite interesting, because the human emotional behavioral development doesn't change really from year to year, and how we react to events, just like most recently, hasn't changed at all than it would have 50, 100 years ago.
And from your years of experience, if you could distill that into 2 or 3 principles with reference to technical analysis, which principles, axioms would these be?
A, try to be as disciplined as you possibly can, and try to take your time making decisions, meaning quite a few technical analysts, and I find myself doing this occasionally, make too much knee-jerk reactions, so we make mistakes faster, not slower. There's a lot more volatility in the markets today, and the volatility is because of a lot of extra noise. Try to decide what you think is very important and what is not important, and try to really focus on those axioms. If you can't do that, then you're always going to be influenced by a lot of external factors that aren't really relevant to trying to make the proper decision. Keep things as simplistically as you can. There's nothing wrong with trying new ideas, but don't necessarily think that there's a holy grail, because you'll never ever find it. And be extremely humble, because you will make mistakes, you will get things wrong, you will tell somebody to sell when you should be buying, and buying when you should be selling, and realize that that's part of the learning curve, and try to understand and learn from your mistakes.
Brilliant. And let's end our discussion with a fun fact about Jeff. What do you do outside of market hours? How do you get yourself thinking anything other than markets? Do you have any hobbies?
Yes, well, first of all, it's difficult to completely always forget about the markets in that sense. I've got quite a few hobbies. Obviously, my family and my son is kind of probably my main hobby, per se. In terms of, I do quite a lot of sports, outdoor sports. I'm a big bike rider, a big road bike rider. I do a lot of hiking, just recently having come back from Kilimanjaro several months ago. During the summer months, I do tend to get on my kayak on a lake and go kayaking quite a bit, and just try to stay all around kind of healthy and fit outdoor activities, more or less.
Fantastic. Well, Jeff would like to thank you for being with us, and good luck.
Great.
Thank you very much.